Hi, I'm Robert. I work in the service department at Dri-Eaz Products. Today we're going to cover the F410 and the F411, commonly known as the 2800i and the 3500i. Today we're going to go over the disassembly of the unit. We're going to remove the fan, we're going to remove the pump, the high voltage panel down below. We're going to remove the cover, the heat exchanger, and generally just disassemble it, trying to let you know what it is you need to clean, what it is you need to look at, and verify when you have issues. The first thing we're going to do is remove the fan. There are 6 bolts that need to be removed in order to pull the fan loose. You do this just for service, possible replacement, and also, which is really essential, the cleaning of the fan. Now that you've removed the 4 screws, you simply can remove the fan, pull it out. I want you to pay attention to all the dust and dirt that'll be in here. Just use some mild dish detergent and make yourself up a formula and wipe it down real good. Use a clean rag afterwards, make it right, then you can put it back together. If need be, it's easy to remove the plug on the other end and replace the blower if need be. So now that we have the fan back in here, we're going to put the duct ring back in and put the 6 bolts back in there. Nothing difficult about it. Again, I start these by hand when possible, just to verify that I have them started. Voila. Now we're going to remove the top and the side panels and take the unit apart so that we can visualize everything and look at it, make sure that it's clean, replace anything that needs to be replaced. There are 4 bolts now on the back side that I'm going to remove. Once all of the bolts are removed, you can remove the side panels and then the back panel. At this point, you're going to have to feed the drain hose back through the inlet, through the hole in the back pocket. Next thing that you have is that you have the heat block, and you want to pay attention to the orientation that it is in. You want to put it back in the same way. You always want to pay attention to all of the gaskets and make sure that they are in correctly, because they determine the airflow of the unit, which is essential to both drying and the operation of the unit. So the heat block, when you get one that's really dirty, what I do is use a light solution of dishwashing soap. I spray it on here. I use some water, not with a nozzle, but just with the outlet on the hose. I wash it down in there, and then I take the hose and I come back and I just hold it above the heat exchanger and I wash it down numerous times, making sure that I get all of the soap out of the unit. So now we're going to remove the heat exchanger, or the heat block, I'm sorry. When you do this, again, I want to warn you, I want you to pay attention to the orientation of it. I want it to go back in there. I want you to be aware that there are gaskets on here and that they all need to be in place before you put this back in here, because it directs airflow, and that's essential. The next thing that you want to do is that you want to pay attention to the coils. If they're dirty, then what you want to do is vacuum them off, then use a coil cleaner, spray it on, let it sit down. I like to wash it down from there and make sure that you get all the coil cleaner off of the coil. So the next thing that we're going to do is that we're going to access the mechanical compartment. This is an aluminum plate. These are stainless steel screws. So I'm going to take them out with a drill motor, and that's okay. But when you start them back, I really encourage you to do it by hand. Again, it's stainless, it's into aluminum, and you can really get them cross-threaded very easily. So the first thing that I do is that I block the unit up with a piece of 2x4, a short piece of 2x4, and take off the left wheel. The next thing I do is that I take out the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 bolts out of this lower plate. Before I remove the electrical box, I'm going to take these two hoses out. This is the braided hose, this is the outlet hose. The best way that I found to do it is to get a pair of needle nose pliers below it and lift up. You want to lift up straight because it is possible to break this check valve, and you don't want to do that. The second hose that you want to remove is the inlet hose out of the drip tray that brings the water to the pump. At that point, I take the electrical box and I slide it out. And then after that, I can remove the pump. Okay, we're now pulling the pump out, and this is the pump in the F410 and the F411. We're going to disassemble this. I'm going to show you what it is you need to look for if you're getting an E9 message. There's only one screw that holds this top on the mechanical end of the pump. It's hinged on this other end. Take it off, set it down. I want you to pay attention to the float switch here. I want you to listen to it. I maybe want you to plug the unit in and see if when you lift it up, if this actuates the blower or the motor. This is the blower that sits on the motor. This end of the pump is normally okay, but sometimes the float switch can fail, and it's essential that you pay attention to it. The next thing that you want to do is you want to actuate the basin on this pump, or look at it, I should say. What you want to do is take the basin off, and this one is dirty, so you want to clean that out. I normally just use a good strong source of water and flush it out and wipe it out as best I can. You want to look at the impeller cover. There's a gasket here. You want to make sure that that's not bulging. You want to make sure that all of this there's no cracks here from freezing or from chemicals. Another issue, and this is very important, is the check valve. It happens to take a 9/16" wrench, but you can use pliers, you can use a crescent wrench to pull it out. It has an O-ring on the bottom of it. You want to make sure that you do not lose this O-ring, and that when it goes back on there, you want it on there. This one happens to be stuck on the pump itself, but it goes on the check valve. You can shake it. There's actually a ball that exists in here. You can shake it and see if it's free in there. If not, you want to pull it out and you want to inspect it and make sure that there's no debris in the check valve. Make sure that you get the ball back in there and that you get it secured pretty good. Once you're done, what you want to simply do is reverse the process, put it back together, plug it in, check and see if the E9 message is gone. Okay, if you don't have power or if there is a question about the unit and you need to get into the high voltage panel or high voltage box assembly, this basically is it. We've got a capacitor. We've actually got two capacitors. We've got a speed control, and the high voltage panel is down below. The high voltage panel can be replaced without replacing the whole thing, as the internal parts. So, you know, weigh that into the consideration. Now that we've gone over the electrical box assembly and the pump, it's time to put the unit back together. The first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to put the pump back in the unit, put the hoses on it, and then I'll go in with the electrical box assembly. Putting the pump back in here can be awkward, but what you want to do is make sure you don't have any wiring pinched. You want to get it all back in. You want to get it secure. At that point, what you want to do is you want to put your hoses back in. Make sure your gasket's in there. At this point, you actually can go ahead and put the box assembly up on top of the unit and start putting that back together. Again, you want to pay attention to wiring. You don't want to get it pinched. Okay, one thing to note is that if you get a unit that's leaking and it's leaking out of the drip tray above or below the coil, what you want to do is pull this outlet hose off, and you want to clear this opening because they do get plugged up if somebody's not doing regular maintenance and they get a lot of debris in the drip tray, then that outlet will get plugged up and the unit will leak. So pay attention to that. And it will make your life a lot easier. Now that we have the electrical box assembled and in the unit, we want to start the bolts that hold it in place. And I do that by hand. At least maybe to use a Phillips head screwdriver to start them with. Sometimes it's a little awkward, but you can get it lined up and then start your screws. From there, I replace the wheel on. Remember, there is a washer. You want to tighten it up. You want to cinch it up till it's tight and then back it off about 1/4 of a turn so that the wheel spins freely is what you want. I replace the hubcap and you're ready to go. At that point, I pull the block out and we continue to assemble the unit and put it back into working condition. As you can see, everything is back in the mechanical compartment in place. You need to pay attention to make sure that no wiring is pinched. This is how it should look before you put the lower panel back on. The next couple of steps that we're going to address is that we're going to put the heat box back in, the heat exchanger. Then we're going to put the back on the unit, threading the hose up through the pocket in the back of the unit. Okay, I'm an experienced technician and I'm using a drill motor to put the unit back in and secure them. But I encourage you, unless you're really experienced, that I did start them by hand. So, but if you're not an experienced technician, I encourage you to always start them by hand and run them in with a ratchet. It's very, very easily to get them cross-threaded, and it's something you don't want to do. I encourage you, once again, I cannot tell you how many times I run into units that are dirty, and it's because people do not pay enough attention to their filter. I really, really encourage you to inspect it. You can clean them off 3 times, basically meaning vacuum them or blow them off, but you cannot get them wet. Another thing that you need to do service-wise is to regularly inspect your power cord. Make sure it's not frayed nor torn. You also want to inspect your drain hose. Again, I want to encourage you to clean your units. I want you to do preventative maintenance, save yourself money and time.